Number of years, you will remember that many years ago, the Helio Couriers were the airplanes that helped kick off the show by dropping out the skydivers. And we're going to find out more about JAARS and this particular airplane. Gentlemen?
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Quinn Varnado, Vice President of Marketing and Future Operations here at Jungle Aviation and Relay Service, known to most of you as JAARS. This machine is the H-295 Helio Courier. In 1955, JAARS founder Cam Townsend first saw one in Tulsa, Oklahoma, while driving to Arkansas. As the plane shot up into the air, he asked his buddy, "What is that?" They immediately turned off their trip to watch it, and then asked the pilot about it when it landed. Cam soon met with the company in Wichita, Kansas, and thus began our nearly 70-year history with Helio Couriers and Mission Aviation. Here to tell us more is JAARS President, retired Lieutenant Colonel, and former U.S. Congressman, Steve Russell.
Well, thanks, Quinn. And this year marks the 70th anniversary of the Helio, and we are excited to continue JAARS' 50-year tradition of demos at AirVenture today. This is a very special and beautiful plane named Tonia, flown by Bruce Powell, a jungle missionary pilot for over 37 years. And this is absolutely the most beautiful Helio Courier flying in the world today. It was actually restored to its full configuration in our 75th anniversary that just happened last year, and we were very excited to get it flying again, and you're going to hear a very, very special story about it in this flight.
This particular Helio is among some 4 dozen that have served with JAARS since 1956, to include serial number 1, known as Old Number 1, which many of you AirVenture veterans will remember was a regular performer at Oshkosh, flown by the legendary Bob Griffin.
Well, the Helio is absolutely amazing. Its steep tail fin, stabilator, and pitch control, combined with huge wing surfaces and deep chord ailerons that go well into the wings, give it incredible low-speed control.
You'll note the bow-legged landing gear drooping well forward of the firewall, kicking outward upon landing. Because they are forward, they make it extremely difficult to nose over, providing a solid anchor for the tail wheel, even with heavy braking.
Well, that's right, Quinn. And what you'll see as it comes in for this short takeoff and landing, watch how the gear deploy outward. You see how it is all kicked out, looking kind of cattywampus there. And the ratio of the landing gear is that they're very far forward, makes it almost impossible to nose over.
Steve, could you tell us a little bit more about the plane and how it got its name, Tonia?
Well, I sure can. When one of JAARS' Helios collapsed a gear leg in an ant bed in Ecuador in 1971, this Helio was sent as its replacement. The missionary translators were trying to reach the violent Waorani tribes to tell them about the good news of Jesus Christ's redemption. And some might remember that Mission Aviation Fellowship pilot Nate Saint was murdered along with 4 other missionaries in that area in 1956 when they attempted to reach the Waorani. Well, the murder of the 5 missionaries created a worldwide interest in reaching these remote people without God's word, and it also spotlighted mission aviation. With the help of missionaries, the Waorani preserved their language and culture, but some of the highland clans still attacked and speared each other in raiding parties, nearly wiping out their own clan. And a boy named Tonia, who had escaped spearing when he was about 12, was rescued and discipled by none other than the legendary Rachel Saint, sister of pilot Nate Saint, who had been murdered by the very tribe she was now working with. Well, when Tonia became a young man, he wanted to go back to his native village to tell them about God. So JAARS pilots strapped a loudspeaker under the wing of a Helio and flew in circles over the village while Tonia's mother talked to them on the hand mic. Later, they dropped Tonia in the village, but sadly, he was murdered by his very own kinsman only a couple of weeks later. When this Helio arrived, JAARS decided to name it in honor of Tonia. Rachel Saint herself poured Amazon water over the nose bowl in a dedication in 1972, and it has been serving ever since. After service in Ecuador, this little missionary plane you're looking at right now made 7,500 landings in treacherous terrain in Indonesia, flew the equivalent of 23 times around the world, carried over 10,000 passengers, and delivered 2.5 million pounds of cargo. And it probably did about the same amount of service when it was in Ecuador.
Wow. And well, as sad as that story is, God began to move among Tonia's clan and of the Waroni, who were racked with guilt about what they had done. It opened the door for them before they went extinct, and today they are thriving, literate, and have their own unique language preserved. And they have seen their people transformed by God's truth in the Bible of their very own language. Now let's look as this Helio comes by for its not so high-speed photo pass. Like everything else that flies, magnifying one area comes with a trade-off in something else. It's just not very fast. It cruises at about 118 knots. Still, the Helio can take off very short, deliver decent loads at slow speeds on impossible terrain, and a 15-minute hop by one of these missionary-type airplanes could literally take weeks on foot through the jungle.
Notice the control surfaces of the wings. When either aileron moves up, an interceptor fence pops up on the wing, giving it remarkable roll control at minimal speed. The aileron's leading edge also dips below the bottom surface of the wing, flowing air and helping with yaw. To help give that plane that incredible controlled flight at less than 25 knots. 4 leading edge slats automatically deploy, 2 on each wing, to give a massive curved airfoil in combination with the flaps. And with a decent headwind, this plane seems to literally hang in the air.
And what makes this plane so unique is its ability to deliver an 800-pound payload on jungle mountain airstrips as short as 470 feet, making for some of the most challenging and dangerous flying. JAARS training airstrips in the Blue Ridge Mountains are 17% slope, and ones encountered overseas can be as steep as 19%. By comparison, the steepest highway that you can imagine is only about 6% by federal regulations. And there are no trees on those roads, there are no swirling winds, and there are no wild pigs that go with them as you drive.
That's right.
While JAARS no longer uses Helios in the jungles of South America, Africa, and Asia, we still do use them as trainers. Our pilots and instructors call them the Great Equalizer. If you can fly one of these things, you can better fly our turbine-powered aircraft such as our Pilatus Porter, which you've seen dropping the jumpers at the beginning of each show.
Well, for 76 years, JAARS has created jungle missionary pilots and mechanics serving worldwide. And if you want to know more about JAARS, go to jaars.org. That's JARS.org. That's JAARS.org to learn more. Or come by and look at this beautiful plane and our other displays at our spot on Mission Corner near Hangar C.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for the privilege to continue the Oshkosh tradition of missionary aviation demos for the last 50 years. We are grateful and honored to be with you today. The Helio Tonia, flown by JAARS missionary pilot Bruce Powell. Let's give him a big hand, everybody.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We appreciate you bringing the airplanes here for so many years and also sharing your Pilatus with us as well for our skydive airplane. And right now, I'm going to hand things over